Okay, there seems to be a lot of chatter because people know each other and they're excited to be together, and we're excited to get started with what we know is going to be a most enlightening, and I hope you'll be engaged in the discussion as we proceed with the 2022 Peace and Justice Annual Report. I am Joyce Davis. I'm PennLive's Outreach and Opinion Editor, and we sincerely thank you all for joining us today for this important conversation and award ceremony. I'm joined by a colleague, Nebi Assayas, whose byline you all have seen, I'm sure, all too often on PennLive sports pages. And together, we're going to serve as your moderators for today's forum.
Good morning, lovely people. Again, I'm Nebi Assayas. Pleasure to meet all of you and see all your faces. Thank you for attending our event. Thank you, Joyce, and I'm very much looking forward to today's event. The PA Media Group, the parent brand of PennLive and the Patriot News, has organized this annual forum to both unite and inspire our communities around the common goal of promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion as prerequisites for peace. We all know there can be no peace without justice, and there can be no justice unless each of us does our part to reject extremism, bigotry, and hatred. So a question I want to leave all of you with is, what is peace? I'm a huge Lauryn Hill fan. Anybody here listen to Lauryn Hill? I know my guy Jimmy Brown up here does. I tell him all the time. I tell him all the time my playlist is better than his, but one thing Lauryn Hill says is how you want to win when you ain't right within. Take a second and let that resonate. I learned at 25 years old that I'm in control of my own happiness. And I think that's when my outlook and perspective on things really began to change. And tough times don't last, right? Tough people do. As many of you may have read or seen or heard about yesterday, there was a former football player at the University of Virginia involved in a big tragedy where he went and killed 3 of his former teammates on a bus. And I pray for that brother because it makes me question and wonder what kind of hatred or anger or animosity did you have that you couldn't confide in someone or go to someone for help. And, you know, mental health is really big in our community. I'm from Harrisburg, born and raised, you know. I'm matriculated here all my entire life. I've watched friends of mine I grew up with play basketball, football with, die at the hands of violence, some in life, some in prison doing life. And we have to understand that, you know, the tongue holds power, and there's power in our words, right? So something as simple as, you look good today, my brother, or, you know, congrats to you. Words of reassurance and affirmation can go a long way. And if I could share something with you real fast, something that I learned in my process in college, it's a poem actually by Edgar Albert Guest, to go see it through. And I'm gonna share it with you real fast, and we're gonna move on with our program, but to go see it through. When you're up against the trouble, meet it squarely face to face. Lift your chin, set your shoulders, plant your feet, and take a brace. When it's vain to try to dodge it, do the best that you can do. You may fail, but you may conquer. See it through. Black may be the clouds about you, and your future may seem grim, but don't let your nerves desert you. Keep yourself in fighting trim. If the worst is bound to happen, in spite of all that you can do, running from it will not save you. See it through. Even hope may seem but futile when with troubles you're beset, but remember you are facing just what other men have met. You may fail, but fall still fighting. Don't give up whatever you may do. Eyes front, head high to the finish. See it through.
Can I say amen?
Amen.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So thank you all.
Beautiful, Nebi.
We're gonna get going with our
this is really the future. I mean, it's the present, but it makes me so proud to see the inner resolve and the character that's there with Nebi, and of course many of our young people in the room today. But the PA Media Group here, and of which Nebi and I are representatives, it's doing its part to keep our communities informed with forums like these and others, because we've done several others in the community. One, Hear Their Voices, where we brought in survivors of gun violence, and we are actively engaged with trying to deal with violence in the city. And my old friend there, Commissioner Carter, he knows that we're dedicated to doing whatever we can to help him as he outreaches into the community. But one of the things we have to do is keep you informed. And keep you informed about what is blocking the progress, what is blocking our search for justice. And we have to keep you informed about what's going on to dismantle systems that continue to deny millions of people access to jobs, housing, healthcare, legal justice, and social dignity. And we do our part by reporting on these issues every day, online and in our newspaper. Last year, we got a brainstorm of an idea. We partnered with that guy over there, the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, in an annual forum, this one, to call attention to the state of peace and justice in Pennsylvania.
Today, we will hear from Chad Dion Lassiter, Executive Director of Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, the state civil rights enforcement agency, as well as from Dr. Bryant Marks, a nationally acclaimed author and leading analyst on issues of social justice, diversity, and equality.
And we're going to offer each one of you an opportunity to ask questions as we share a period of informal conversation with Dr. Marks and with Chad Dion Lassiter following the final remarks, Dr. Marks's remarks. Now, you should have note cards. We would ask that you write your questions on the note cards, and someone will come around to pick them up. That way, things can go quicker. We can get in more questions and more conversation. We also have Megan Heaton, who's sitting there looking at what's going on Facebook, and she may interrupt us because there may be some questions that we want to take from our audience in the ether land. So with that, I think we are now going to call up, you tell them who we're calling up.
Up next, we'll have a phenomenal man by the name of Burke Noel come up and recognize our sponsors, our Vice President of Content at PennLive.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you can tell, I work for a wonderful company. Just like all of you in attendance, we are committed at the PA Media Group to having a diverse and inclusive workplace. So what does that mean? That means every year we learn so much about DEI from national experts. And I will tell you, every year, one individual inspires us like no other. I think everybody from the PA Media Group will tell you that. Dr. Bryant Marks and his discussion on implicit bias is unrivaled. So, before we get to the heart of today's program, I would like to take a minute and thank our partners and our sponsors who have made this possible and have brought Dr. Marks to us all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. First, thank you, Chad Dion Lassiter and the PA Human Relations Commission. As Joyce said, this is the second year you have partnered with us and made this event possible. So thank you to you and your team. Now, I'd like for you to meet our sponsors. I've asked each of these individuals to come up and share a few moments with us, tell us about what inspired them to participate in this important discussion. First, from the Hershey Company, Chief Diversity Officer Alicia Petros.
Thank you so much, Bert. Hello, it is a true honor to be here today. We are thrilled to sponsor this event because, like our founder, Milton Hershey, we believe that everyone has a right to succeed. Our company has a proud legacy of goodness. And so for us, diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're not only things that we focus on, but they are truly part of our business and part of our mission. And because of that, we are thrilled to support organizations like Peace and Justice, organizations which are advancing equity for everyone and starting in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Now, Hershey products are located in 98% of US households. That's right, 98%. And it turns out that chocolate and pandemic paired extremely well together through smart management of our business, led by our amazing female CEO, Michelle Buck, and her very talented leadership team. we were able to keep every Hershey employee working throughout the pandemic. Yes. We also, because chocolate sales were a little increased, we were able to chart a bright future for ourselves, and we purchased 3 businesses during the pandemic. Today, the Hershey Company has 5 of the nation's fastest growing snack brands. So if you enjoy Skinny Pop, Pirate's Booty, or Dot's Pretzels, you're part of the Hershey family as well. Now, because our products are everywhere, it's our responsibility to ensure that our workforce is as diverse as the consumers that we serve. And in 2020, we realized that we can and should do more. So we doubled down on our DEI initiatives. We worked with hundreds of employees from our manufacturing floors to the boardroom, and we created a new 10-year DEI framework that we call the Pathways Project. And it has 3 pillars, thank you. We are focused on getting more diverse folks to join our company, to work in our plants, to work on our salary teams, and to also be suppliers to the company that has the #1 share of confection in the US. We are keenly focused on developing our employees. This is the thing that matters the most to us, taking the best care of the folks that make our products every day. And thirdly, we're focused on reaching out to organizations like Peace and Justice who have a stake in advancing equity across the US. Now, we've had a good legacy, but we know we need to do more. We are keenly focused on bringing more Black and Latina talent into our organization, across our manufacturing facilities, as well as in our salaried roles. We're on a pretty good track right now. Over the last 5 years, we've increased Black representation 77% and Latina representation 132%. Thank you. We are not done. We're focused on bringing more diversity in, particularly in people leader positions. And I am incredibly proud to lead in an organization which has no pay gap. In 2020, we achieved pay equity for female salaried employees in our organization. Thank you. But due to the talented work of our total rewards teams and our workforce analytics teams, we didn't stop there. The following year, we achieved pay equity if you are Black, Latino, and Asian, and you're working in a corporate salaried role. But wait, there's more. By 2025, we're going to achieve pay equity for all of our salaried workforce by the job family level across the globe. So we've done a few good things. Thank you. We're incredibly proud of our legacy. And for us, we know that our legacy of corporate goodness and our leadership, these things have to go hand in hand. And so for us, this work is a mandate from Michelle Buck, our CEO. So again, we are delighted to sponsor the work of Peace and Justice. I am delighted to have met so many of you here today who are doing like-minded work. So we're honored to be here. We are incredibly, incredibly excited to hear our speaker, and I'm certain we're going to learn some things that'll fuel our unconscious bias conversations that we require twice a year at our company. And a big congratulations to all of the honorees today. Thank you so much.
With any luck, Alicia, if you get a candy bar in every bag, you might get to 99%, right? The next sponsor that I'd like for you to meet, from Emerge Education, we have Senior Vice President for Corporate Partnerships, Lauren Holubek.
Thank you, everyone. Emerge Education is proud to sponsor this year's Peace and Justice event. We're really proud to sponsor this event because we know that diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are not just policies, programs, or headcounts. So part of the work we do at Emerge is working with organizations to cultivate creative solutions to their labor force needs by connecting learning and development strategies for employees at every level. We know that research says that equitable employees outpace their competitors by respecting their unique needs and perspectives. And diverse and inclusive workplaces earn deeper trust and more commitment from their employees. So as a local employer, we're pleased to sponsor this event today, and thank you so much for having us.
From the Giant Company, please welcome Head of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, Aisha Noor.
Thank you so much. Well, hello, everyone. It's great to see so many friends here. But first of all, thank you to PennLive and Pennsylvania Human Relations Commissions and all the partners. So let's give them a round of applause for bringing us all together. So for the Giant Company, we are almost 100 years old, and we deeply believe in building that inclusive culture for everyone. One of our team promises is be you, and what it means is no matter who you are, we welcome you just the way you are. So I know that from my personal experiences that I have been in the spaces where I felt like I have to take my part of personality out of the door. And at the Giant Company, we are building that inclusive culture where everyone feels that they belong. So as I shared earlier as well, peace and justice and diversity, equity, inclusion, they go hand in hand, right? So when they reached out with this opportunity to partner, it was no-brainer that we said, yes, we are in. Because you cannot really achieve that diversity, equity, inclusion without partnering with the community, right? If you want to build that healthier and inclusive communities, we cannot do this work alone. You cannot do this work alone, but together we can. We can build that impact together. And just like Alicia mentioned about the Hershey chocolates, so when you come to the Giant, you know where you can get those Hershey chocolates, right? Along with other like milk and groceries and all that. But honestly, it's so great to be here together after the COVID. And it has been challenging few years for almost many of us, especially for our team members as well, who have been at the front line. They didn't have the luxury to work from home or sell those groceries, for people to come to the table to make those memories. So they were there for all of you and our neighbors, because we proudly serve millions of customers across Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, and now in New Jersey as well. With more than 36,000 people and more than 190 stores, we proudly feel that we are part of the community, and that's one of the reasons that we are here to do our part, to be part of this initiative, so together we can build that peace and justice. Our shared purpose is connecting families for the better future. Especially on the diversity, equity, inclusion, we are also working some of the initiatives that you mentioned, from the pay equity to workforce to the representation. We are working on that, but along with that, we are also making sure that our qualitative KPIs, those are also met. It's really hard to gauge that if people really feel belong, but through our initiatives, through building that compassionate conversations, encouraging people to have those courageous conversations and discussion, we are truly working towards that, building that culture of belonging for everyone. So collectively, we can connect families for a better future, and we are focused on people, culture, and communities. And that's how we believe we will build that inclusive culture, and we are honored and we are humbled to be part of this event for building peace and justice in PA. So thank you again to all of you. Thank you, Dr. Marks, looking forward to hear you. Thank you, Mr. Chad Lester, and everyone. Thank you.
We have one more sponsor that I'd like for you to meet. From the World Affairs Council of Harrisburg, our outreach and opinion editor at the PA Media Group, Joyce Davis.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we had to be a part of this, but it's really not Joyce Davis. Please, I would like members of our board to join me, because I want them to see how beautiful diversity really is. Please, Oralia Garcia Dominique. Please, Hagar El Sheikh. At the Gatstons, Reverend and Mrs. Nathaniel Gadsden. Who am I? Oh, Kalpana Dopalapudi, come on. And Elise Nestorov. These are members, some of the members of the Board of Directors of the World Affairs Council of Harrisburg. And I can tell you, I could not find a more talented, a more creative, a more dedicated group of people who want to advance peace and justice, not only in our country, but around the globe. We represent and have been, so I mean, you're just back from South Africa, we'll talk about that later, but they represent really just the most committed people to what this is all about. So I don't know if anyone wants to say a quick word or so, but we just wanted to be a part of this to show you also the beauty of diversity.
So thank you, Dr. Joyce Davis, founder, visionary, impact, and more importantly, she, and the World Affairs Council bring the world to Harrisburg. So we thank you for that. We also want to encourage you to become involved. When you leave today, think of us in terms of your impact, your support, and your membership. We grow together, and as we grow together, we do more. So thank you, and I'll pass this over now to my fellow board member, Hajir.
I don't have a lot to say. It's just refreshing to see so many amazing and beautiful faces in the room today. We can all make the difference and the change that we want to see in the world. We can't do it alone, and as you all here, you have one goal, the same goal. We all share that goal. But just keep doing what you do, and we will see a better future for the next generation, hopefully.
Elise? From Bulgaria.
Bulgaria. I'm proud to be part of this group. I mean, I'm proud to be a proud board member of World Affairs Group, but also talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our actions with the World Affairs Council speaks more than the words. I cannot tell you that although we're based in Harrisburg in central Pennsylvania, literally we carry out mission across the globe. I mean, to Bulgaria, Europe, to Ukraine, and back to the United States. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who are doing this amazing work and continue to just keep the justice, keep the social justice sense, elevated, and make sure we're building all-inclusive communities. So thank you.
Thank you to be part of this program, and peace is very important to our lives, and which we need it. And justice also we need as diversified groups, and we are very proud to be part of this program. Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you. They're going to talk later. But thank you all. Thank you. Okay, so now we will be moving into the meat of the program, and we are going to do that by first introducing basically the inspiration behind this, Chad Dion Lassiter. He is Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. And let me just tell you right off the bat, I can't do justice to this man's bio. Okay, I just can't. It is pages long. You could write books about what he does. He's internationally known, nationally important, locally impactful. So I want to get that out right away. I'm going to give you a glimpse of what he is about. But he is an important person in Pennsylvania because he is charged, and his commissioners, with investigating complaints of unlawful discrimination in the areas of employment, housing, commercial property, education, and public accommodations. During his tenure in this position, Chad Dion Lassiter has developed and launched a No Hate in Our State town hall to address the surge of white nationalism in Pennsylvania. And he's also done a social justice lecture series to provide an outlet for Pennsylvania communities to discuss imperative issues. He serves on the Racial Reduction Response Team for those communities impacted by hatred. He oversees a staff of 87 with 3 regional offices that serve 67 counties in Pennsylvania. He also manages an annual budget, which I had it, of $12 million. Under his appointment, Chad Lassiter has developed programs such as Global Social Justice Initiative and Black and Jewish Beloved Community Dialogue, and the College Race Dialogue Initiative. Now, with the World Affairs Council and even with PennLive and the webinars we've done, we've called on Chad innumerable times. He's not only articulate, he is profoundly deep in what he shares. I mean, really. And he and his staff, really, we're grateful because they've collaborated for these past 2 years on this event. So Chad, my friend, will you come forward?
Good afternoon, and thank you so much, Joyce. Just a servant leader. I'm really humbled and honored to be in this space this afternoon. Those of us who come out of a faith tradition, we oftentimes know that at times you have to sit and, like the psalmist says, be still and know, and allow someone else to pour into you. And so I'm sitting over there choked with emotion because the first time I heard Dr. Bryant Marks was at a conference of IORA, which is a long acronym for all of the human relations and civil rights commissions that convene at an annual conference, and it was in Orlando. And he's captivating, and he is just so empowering, and I'm looking forward to being inspired with the work that we do at the PHRC. Before I get started, if we can all just stand, those of us that can stand, if we could just briefly stand. And in our own little way, whether we're people of faith, non-faith, whether it's the holy text of the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, the 5 baskets of Buddha Zen, the books of Hamagichi, if we could just have a moment of silence for today serves as the 6-month anniversary of the individuals who lost their lives in that supermarket in Buffalo. And also you heard our young man here talk about the 3 individuals who lost their lives down at Virginia. But a moment of silence just for humanity, a moment of silence for humanity on every side of the color line and on every side of the gender line. If we can just agree to just have a quick moment of silence. Thank you so much. Before I get started, we can have a seat, thank you. Before I get started, I want to just acknowledge Commissioner Michael Hardiman, if he can stand, of the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. And stay standing for a moment. If Brother Joe Robinson can stand and just, and if Sue could stand, you didn't know this, but if Sue could stand, yes, if you could stand. If Bob can stand, he didn't see this coming. And I know that she's getting ready to have knee surgery, but if Kate can stand, and if Joyce can stand, and lastly, if Marcia can stand. And just really briefly, I wanted to acknowledge them because these, you can have a seat, these are individuals who keep me in their thoughts, prayers, and reflections. This is a hard position to be in a state like Pennsylvania. And so what you saw was different races and different ethnicities, possibly a lot of emergent identities. But these are individuals who, in the almost 5 years that I've been in this role, and in particular Joyce, they keep me motivated, they keep me inspired. So I just wanted to acknowledge you all, not trying to embarrass you. I'm going to be very brief. We have an annual report, our No Hate in the State report. We have some copies here. You can go on our website and you can get it, because I'm going to put on my metaphoric seatbelt and get poured into by this brilliant individual who comes out of the same kind of tradition as me. He's a servant leader, and he's done amazing things for the Obama White House. I know you're going to read his bio, and he's just phenomenal. So I just wanted to start with just looking at a quote from Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. Du Bois said that either ignorance will destroy the United States or the United States will destroy ignorance. So who is Du Bois? In context, Du Bois was not just the first African-American to get a PhD from Harvard University, studied over at Oxford University. He was also the founder of the Niagara movement that morphed into the NAACP. Lots of works, and I know that we're reading a lot of things, but you can't go wrong with books by Du Bois that's written from Du Bois. The Souls of Black Folk come to mind. Black Reconstruction comes to mind. The Philadelphia Negro, the first sociological study of its kind in the country that looked at black life and positioned black people in this space of being people who have problems, but not a problem people. Du Bois went on further to say that the problem of the 20th century, and I think that we can easily reach consensus here, that the problem of the 21st century is the problem of the color line. What was Du Bois talking about? In context, he was talking about white violence, white racism, white rage, and white supremacy. Therefore, peace and justice are not just mere emergent themes, but are pillars of justice. PennLive and PHRC decided upon this partnership simply because, in context, there is a lot of hate in the state of Pennsylvania. You can run the data. You can look at the Southern Poverty Law Center report. You can look at the ADL report. You can look at our report. And the data speaks volumes. But against the backdrop of that hate are those that work on peace and justice initiatives daily in an attempt to bring about the beloved community that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Abraham Yeshua Heschel spoke about. Within the structure of the beloved community, you find love, or what all the holy texts call an agape love, the highest form of love. The PHRC has provided the following to the wonderful citizens of the PHRC to address the surge of all forms of unlawful discrimination. Our PHRC Lunch and Learn series, against the backdrop of a burdensome historical pandemic, we had to get innovative and unique, and we had to do some things online. So we went to a PHRC Lunch and Learn where we invited the beloved community. And within the structure of the beloved community, we're not saying that everyone agrees with what we say at the PHRC or some of our beliefs. Not everyone saw that knee that that officer put on the neck of George Floyd the same. But within the beloved community, whatever your ideology is, let's look at things through the pillars of truth, love, and kindness. Our PHRC Diversity Speaks, which is something that we do once a month virtually, where we have diverse speakers come in, promoting everything that you spoke about so eloquently, but making sure that we have justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And as you so brilliantly stated, you have to have peace and justice before you can do any D&I work. Our PHRC No Hate in Our State Town Hall has been something that we've done over the past 5 years. We started in York, PA, against the backdrop of Spike Lee's film, The Black Klansman, being shown. It was a movie theater down in that area where the Ku Klux Klan put leaflets on cars in the parking lot and attempted to recruit white nationalists or white nationalist sympathizers to come into that framework. And my dear sister Marcia down in Carlisle, the Ku Klux Klan and white nationalists down there, and she called on the PHRC to come down, and we worked in conjunction with her organization, Moving Circles. Our PHRC Social Justice Lecture Series was something, Dr. Marks, where I said I have to reduce self to serve others. And I recognized coming from Philadelphia to Harrisburg, just the image, 6'6", bald-headed, the racial gaze, and knowing how some of the data in Harrisburg really spoke to maybe not being an inviting community. So I said, I'm going to bring in some colleagues from around the country, and we brought in Tim Wise, and we brought in multiple other individuals for our PHRC Social Justice Lecture Series. We just had one most recently with Anita Hill down in Philadelphia with the Temple University Beasley School of Law. But the Social Justice Lecture Series speaks to the fact that we are a nonpartisan, independent agency. And it's comprised of individuals that we select to come in. We've had Juju Chang from ABC News come in and do a social justice lecture series around AAPI hate. We've had Todd Quiones from ABC News 2020, What Would You Do, to come in, and we've had multiple others. We also have a PHRC Speaks Fair Housing in the 21st Century that is in its 4th season. It airs on PCN, Pennsylvania Cable Network, that speaks to fair housing discrimination, also speaks to all those things that you need to know as it relates to the Fair Housing Act. We have an interagency task force that's comprised of multiple individuals who are fighting for peace and justice in our Commonwealth. We do DEI training, we do anti-racism training, we do unconscious bias training, and we do it from a perspective of we start with ourselves. We deliver the work at the PHRC, but make no mistake, we also come to a context with a pretext of isms. Doesn't make us bad people, But oftentimes we have to also make sure that we're operating from a perspective of delivering the services through our Pennsylvania Human Relations Act, but making sure that we deal with our biases as well. I certainly know that I benefit from male privilege. And I certainly recall a time being a professor at the University of Penn and never thinking about walking down Locust Walk with sensors in the back of my head that anything was going to happen to me. And was startled to learn that several members in my American Race Relations class at the University of Penn School of Social Policy and Practice, who were on the lacrosse team and one on the wrestling team, engaged in date rape of a young lady who showed up to class every single day, resilient, with an emergent identity of just putting her head down, albeit being marginalized and oppressed. And so we're in a space at PHRC with a lot of challenges in our state, making sure that we coalesce with a lot of you, with our advisory councils, with our human relations commissions. We say that they are the eyes and the ears, but they're more than that. They're angels in disguise who are in multiple catchment areas throughout the 67 counties of PA, making sure that they alert us of all forms of unlawful discrimination. So in ending, I know we're getting ready to bring up Dr. Marks. Do your thing, inspire us, but leave us with a moment to capture all that you're saying. We thank God for you, and we look forward to this presentation that you're going to do, and we look forward to learning from you as well. Thank you.
Mr. Lassiter, thank you so much. Very well said. Could we have another round of applause for him, please? Phenomenal. And like he just alluded to, up next, I would like to introduce the resilient Dr. Bryant T. Marks, who is a minister, researcher, trainer, and award-winning educator. Dr. Marks has provided diversity, equity, and inclusion training for 18 years. His personal and professional mission is to develop the knowledge, wisdom, and skills of others that will allow them to reach their full potential and live their lives with purpose and passion. Dr. Marks is the founding director of the National Training Institute on Race and Equity and is a professor in the Department of Psychology at Morehouse College. He served on President Obama's Board of Advisors with the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for African Americans and is senior advisor with the White House Initiative on historically black colleges and universities. Shout out to HBCUs. Dr. Marks was a contributor and trainer with the Obama administration's My Brother's Keeper and 21st century policing programs. Dr. Marks has provided implicit bias training to over 2,000 police chiefs and executives via a series of briefings at the White House in 2016 and several thousand patrol officers in local police departments, including the entire Los Angeles Police Department. He has also provided training related to diversity and implicit bias to individuals in education, K-12 and higher education, philanthropy, nonprofits, local and federal government, and to numerous corporations. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Marks.
Thank you, sir. All right, thank you all so much. See, now it's pressure. I got to live up to all this hype and this and everything else, but we're going to do our best here. I know we are streaming, so if you all can let me know just in turn, I have a lapel. I tend to move around a lot. So IT people, AV people, if you could let me know my parameters, I don't want to go out of frame for the streaming folks. All right, so good morning. All right, well, good afternoon, that is. Good to be with you all today. I am Reverend Dr. Bryant T. Marks, Sr. I bring you greetings from the Southeast. I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia at Morehouse College. I'm in Fulton County. Lots going on down there, a variety of levels. Always keeps things interesting. I'll leave it at that. Oh, Pennsylvania, though. Georgia, Pennsylvania. Georgia, y'all can relate. Oh, okay. Again, I'm apolitical. I can't say stuff. Okay, but very interesting. Okay, all right. So anyway, thank you so much to PennLive, to the sponsors here, to Chad, to Joyce, the whole team for bringing me up. I don't get out much these days. We have a home studio and a studio at Morehouse. A lot of my trainings now are virtual. And all right, PennLive people, the PA group, now y'all know, give me 30 minutes. Y'all know how I'm going to do my best in this time, right? But they know me. I'm just getting warmed up in 30 minutes. We're gonna keep on going. And I'm going to take my full 30, too. This is 12:42. All right, 12, just making sure. All right, folks, let's get into this. So, hidden bias of good people, implications of individuals, organizations, and the communities they serve, our organizations there. Thank you all so much. So PennLive and the PA group are part of a network under Advanced Local, which is sort of a national media sort of conglomerate. We've had trainings with them. It's always been fun. They're very interactive. They respond in the chat. They take the polls. So it's been great. So I appreciate the time to be with you today with them and to share with some new folks as well. All right, so let's get into this. Now I need everyone looking at the screen. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to flash an image on the screen. It's going to be really, really quick. And then afterwards, I want you to think about what you saw, okay? So everybody looking at the screen. PennLive, PA people, y'all just relax. Y'all seen this before. It's good, okay? All right, so you remember your anticipation? All right, everybody looking? Stop multitasking. Everybody looking? All right, here we go real quick. Real quick. All right, what'd you see? A face? Some of y'all didn't see nothing because you blinked. I told you don't blink. All right. How many of you saw a face looking straight ahead, looking straight at you? Okay, how many saw a face looking to the side, profile shot? Okay, everybody please, look again. I love the audible, ooh, ah, oh, it's great, it's wonderful. Do you see both possibilities now? Here's the deal, folks. Two people could look at the same situation or the same person and see something completely different. As a matter of fact, one person could look at another person or situation, have an initial impression, and then have what we call an aha moment, right? Aha, I see the other possibility. Now, your aha moment, a few seconds. But in certain cases, it may be a few hours, days, weeks, months, or even years. It's all a matter of perspective. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today is perspective taking, right? Not only from the perspective of your organizations, the role you serve, but also elected officials, the general public, and a variety of other folks who have a stake in this thing that we call implicit or unconscious bias. Now, this concept of implicit bias, nothing new. It's been studied by social scientists for close to 50 years. It's all about blind spots, okay? For example, you may not have noticed, but on this leaf over here, there's actually a caterpillar sitting right on top of that leaf right there. I know, it blended right in. Pretty cool. You couldn't tell. That's the point, right? Sometimes things are right in front of us and we don't notice them. Other times, things are not actually there, but based upon our experiences and our backgrounds, we imagine that they were. We'll talk about both phenomena today. But the concept of implicit bias as an area of study, nothing new, close to 50 years. But in the last 3 to 5 years, many forward-leaning organizations have engaged in implicit bias training, which we think is good. We, being actual social scientists, we think it's good, but we do have some concerns. Concern number one, some people say, well, implicit bias, the concept of the training, is it a fad, right? Is it a hot topic? Here today, gone tomorrow. Folks, not a fad. We're talking about universal human principles that have always been with us and always will be. As long as human beings exist, they will have both implicit and explicit bias, not going away. Other people say, well, does implicit bias training actually work? Well, define working, right? If working is about changing behavior, that is a process. Now, this could be the beginning of your process, the continuation of your process, but it is a process nonetheless. See, some folks come into our sessions, because we do implicit bias awareness and implicit bias mitigation, right? So implicit bias awareness, some folks come in and they automatically expect their behavior to change. That is not how this works. Folks, I'm going to raise your awareness today. I'm going to give you some definitions, the science, the causes, the consequences, and some homework. At least 7 to 10 things you can do starting today to identify, manage, or reduce your bias. If you engage in a few of them consistently, your biases will be reduced. If you don't, then they won't. That's how this goes, right? So, does this training work? It works if you do the work. Can't change your behavior in 45 minutes, whatever the case is, right? But what I can do is put you on a path to behavioral change if you hang in there with me, all right? Now, okay, my team was going to show you this. It's supposed to be impressive. Whatever, got a lot of clients, okay? All over the country, a lot of clients in different sectors, higher education, K through 12, healthcare, what did it put in here? Fortune 500s, Wharton, so we do a lot of work. Wharton, undergrad with the business school has been great. And I train all of Philadelphia PD. So this year, all 6,700 Philadelphia police officers, I trained every single one of them. We just finished that this year. That was a 1.5 year long process, but it was great. And what else we have? The hospitals, banks, consulting firms, the government. But, all right, a lot of clients. We've never advertised. All of our work is referral-based, word of mouth, and we've pretty much consistently been at capacity, okay? All right. Now, a little exercise for you. All right, so now I'm going to describe a scenario. Now, some of you may have heard this scenario before, right? It's called the accident. The accident. So if I'm describing a scenario and you realize, oh, I've heard this before, especially PennLive people, do not respond to the question that I ask at the end if you have heard this before, okay? All right, and don't whisper anything to your neighbors and such that. Just if you heard this before, just sit back and smile in your silent brilliance, okay? Again, you're going to ruin it for the people around you, all right? I know you're going to, ooh. Okay, this all right, if you have not heard this before, here we go. A father and his son are driving. It's late at night. It's raining pretty hard. Roads are really slippery. Car starts to swerve back and forth, spins out of control, crashes into a tree. The father is killed instantly. EMT workers come to the scene, pick up the son, take him to the nearest hospital. They check him out in the emergency room. They're like, wow, he's pretty banged up. He needs surgery. They send him upstairs to the operating room. The surgeon walks into the operating room and says, I cannot operate on this boy. He's my son. How is that possible? Pause. For those of you who heard this before, just sit back and smile. For those who have not heard this before, give it some thought. Don't say anything out loud. Just give it some thought. How's that possible? A few seconds. Now, the most popular answers that we hear across the country, surgeon is a stepdad, adopted dad, priest, like some priest you call father, right? Godfather, sperm donor in the mix somehow. All right. But for those of you who have heard this before, what is the traditional answer to this riddle? Mother. The surgeon is the boy's mother. Think about it. A father and his son are driving. Father gets killed. Boy is taken to the hospital, up into surgery. The surgeon walks into the operating room and says, I cannot operate on this boy. He's my son. The surgeon is the boy's mother. Now, being completely honest, whether you heard this riddle for the first time today, or think back to the very first time you heard this riddle for those who heard it before. How many of you, the very first time you heard this riddle, was your instant response? Instant response, the surgeon is the mom. Okay? All right? Don't feel bad. When I first heard this, I was stumped as well. Please understand. Although intellectually, we all realize that women can be surgeons, just like men, there still may be a little itty-bitty part of you that equates surgeon with male. And that is implicit bias. That's where it lives. That's where it swims. That's where it functions, right? Unconscious associations between groups and traits that we don't know we have. The reason that most people, most Americans have some difficulty with that riddle the first time they hear it, and they give male-based responses, adopted dad, same-sex dad, stepdad, male-based responses, is because for many of you, when you think surgeon, you think male, and you don't even know when it happened. Can you tell me the date? Exactly. And what I submit to you is there are thousands of other associations, just like that one, swing around in your head, below conscious awareness. You don't know they exist, and you're still good people. You're still good people. You're just good people who've been overexposed to groups and traits, and there's going to be a consequence of that. All right, little call and response. I'm going to call out a few occupations. I'm going to go like this, and I want you to yell out loud who comes to mind, male or female, when I say the following occupations. I understand that gender is a continuum, so self-identified, male or female, who comes to mind, okay? And folks, don't try to impress me. All right, let's be honest on who comes to mind. Okay, all right. So who comes to mind when I say nurse, male or female? Administrative assistant, male or female? Kindergarten teacher, male or female? All right, now you all know that men can do those jobs just like women. Right? You all do know that, right? I gotta just check. All right. So by you thinking of saying female, that doesn't make you sexist. That makes you human. You may have lived a life where you happen to come across more female nurses, because there are, more female administrative assistants, because there are, and more female kindergarten teachers, because there are. And the recorder that's running in your mind throughout your lifetime is keeping track of those exposures in a cumulative fashion, until your mind on its own gets to the point where it locks in that association for you, and you will not know when it happens. Folks, our minds are built to be efficient. Upon repeated exposure to certain groups and certain traits, or certain groups in certain roles, your mind says, I've seen it before, I got it. It'll lock it in for you. You won't know when it happens. But when it does, the seed for implicit bias is planted. It may blossom, it may not, but it's there. Let's do it this way. Besides Barack Obama, when I say President of the United States, what race comes to mind? Right, okay, it's not a trick question. All right, so white, okay, white. Okay, you're like, trying to get me. All right, not a trick question. White, okay. President of the United States, all right, what gender comes to mind? Okay, now are you racist for thinking or saying white? No. Are you sexist for thinking or saying male? No. Because with one exception, white male presidents is all you've ever known. Throughout the history of this country, your history books, on your money, you've only seen white male presidents with one exception. We all know that a woman can do the job, it just has not happened yet. So until it does, a woman is unlikely to come to mind when you think President of the United States. Are you a bad person? No. It simply makes you human. You've never seen a female president. Folks, you could be a feminist to the 10th power, and I say President of the United States, you still think white male. It doesn't make you less of a feminist. The mind can only lock in that to which has been exposed. And no one in this room, in your state, or in this country has ever been exposed to, has ever seen a female president of the United States. So why do you think one would come to mind? Folks, let me help you out. If you want to understand implicit bias at a deep level, my strongest advice to you is to look at it through the lens of disproportionate exposure. Please write that down. I'm a professor, y'all. Please write that down, okay? Disproportionate exposure. I'm going to actually write down 3 things, and they're both short. Disproportionate exposure. What do I mean? From the time you were born until today, right? You've been taking in the world, learning, right? Now, some things we take in repeatedly. Your brain is a very efficient information processing machine. It's going to lock it in for you. You will not even know when it happens. But when it does, the potential for implicit bias is established. That is your process. This has nothing to do with your character. Am I a good person? I'm a bad person? Irrelevant. Folks, please hear me. Implicit bias is much more about the machinery of your mind than it is the content of your character. That was pretty good right there, right? That was tweetable, quotable, pretty good, right? Bottom line, it is not a character issue. It is a disproportionate exposure issue. Think of it this way. Here are your 2 key ingredients, your 2 key criteria for having implicit bias. Please write this down. This is what we call a takeaway. 2 key ingredients for having implicit bias. You ready? You ready? Here we go. Number 1, living in society. Number 2, having a brain. That's it. That's all, folks. If that applies to you, then yes, you have implicit bias like everybody else. Yes, everybody else. You say, no, I don't. No, I don't. You say, I don't have any biases. I don't see race. I don't see gender. I just see a rainbow coalition of humanity. Yeah, you can talk all that rainbow stuff you want, please. It sounds good, but the science does not support it. All right, let's do it this way. Finish this phrase out loud, call and response. Finish this phrase with the very first thing that comes to mind, okay? And don't try to be all clever and creative. All right, first thing that comes to mind, okay? Finish this phrase. You ready? You ready? Here we go. Peanut butter and jelly. Okay, are you a bad person for thinking of saying jelly? No, but you live in this society and you have a brain. And in this society, you're more likely to see peanut butter paired with jelly more frequently than peanut butter paired with fish. Y'all getting hungry and bananas, all right? But the notion is, right, it's overexposure. Bottom line, folks, we all have biases. Yes, you, everybody, okay? All right? It comes with the human condition. Why? Because the brain is your hardware. Your brain is designed to lock in associations upon repeated exposure. Society dictates when associations get locked in. That's your process. This is not a character. I could care less about your character when it comes to implicit bias. Why? Because all implicit bias requires is exposure. Explicit bias requires belief. Explicit bias, blatant racism and sexism. I'm not going to date you. Don't live in my neighborhood. I'm not going to hire you. That is a character issue because people know what they're doing. Implicit bias, exposure issue. Live in society, got a brain, okay? Overexposed groups and traits. Your brain will lock it in for you. I'm talking about at the amygdala, brainstem, reptilian level. Our brains are designed to lock in associations upon repeated exposure. It is not a character issue. So please let all that guilt, shame, blame stuff go. Relax, okay? We're talking about human processing, basic psychology that applies to everyone. Remember, folks, I cut my teeth training police, right? I've personally trained over 50,000 police officers. Right? And so the notion is when I come into a room with them and they don't look like this all the time, or this rainbow coalition y'all got going on, they don't look like this. I done trained all over the country, right? They don't always look like this. Okay, so I can walk into a room where I can feel the hostility. Why? A little inside baseball. Any law enforcement in the house or former law enforcement? Okay. All right, one. Okay, all right. So here's inside baseball on police. Shh, okay, yeah. All right. Police, many of them don't like classroom training. They want to be in the class, listen to somebody talk at them for hours. They hate that. They like to do stuff and wrestle and the gun range and all that. Now, they're in a classroom, and it's mandatory training. In the classroom, they got to hear some dude talk about implicit bias, meaning I'm coming in here, I don't want to be here, and this dude is saying I'm racist. That's, for some of them, that's the psychology, right? We don't deal with that. The guilt, shame, and blame, that's how we work through science and empathy. That's how we do our work. Okay? So think about implicit bias, think about basic human principles, how the mind functions and how society is structured. That's going to liberate you, and it'll keep you a little open, I hope. Okay? So we all have biases simply because we're human. Every single human being on the planet has implicit bias. And by the way, the implicit associations upon which our biases are based, they usually help us. Overwhelmingly, they help us. But every once in a while, we can get it wrong, it can go sideways, and that's why we're here today. So although we all have biases, the impact of our biases on others will depend on the roles we play in society. So in any society, you have people in special roles, where if their bias plays out, other people's lives are impacted in a significant way. Who are those people? What are those roles? Scenario. Say you have 3 siblings, all grow up in the same household. One grows up to become an accountant, one becomes an IT professional, and one becomes a police officer. Okay, call and response, call and response. If you could only train one of those 3 on how to manage or reduce their bias, which one of those 3 would you train? Wait for it. Accountant, IT, or police officer? Police officer. Now, the police officer doesn't have bias because they're a police officer. The other 2 siblings have the same bias. You got to get this. 2 people can have the same exact bias, but depending on their role in society, the impact will vary. You mean to tell me if one person can come to your house and determine if you keep custody of your children, you wouldn't want them to be unbiased? Exactly. That social worker who has that power is just as human as you and I, with bias like you and I, but their job is special, where if their bias plays out, families are broken up. No disrespect to dog walkers. Love dog walkers all across the country. But I'm not spending my time flying and on computers all day training a bunch of dog walkers on implicit bias. But I train police officers, and I train educators, and I train doctors and nurses and judges and prosecutors and probation. Why? Because if their bias plays out, somebody else's life is different. So if a cop emails me and says, I was on the street the other day, Dr. Marks, pulled over a young black male, even in Philadelphia, young black male, and something you said in the training stuck with me, and I spoke to him differently. That's success for me. Right? So folks, in the work that you all do, because you are in influential positions and influential organizations, all right, you are amongst this group of special people. Where if your bias plays out, other people's lives are different. Okay, just process that at a deeper level. Still, no guilt, shame, and blame, just a different perspective. Got it? All right, so we all have biases because the human impact depends on the role of society. If we get this, we're golden. Folks, think about this logically, right? From the time you were born until today, you live in a society, you got a brain. Agreed? Okay, just by existing, society is going to overexpose you to groups and traits. Your brain is designed to lock in associations upon repeated exposure. Where does the guilt come in? Guilt for what? Being human? But you can be grown, you can acknowledge the process, you can say, well, I live in society, I got a brain. I'm overexposed to groups and traits. And if I'm not careful, those locked in associations can influence how I treat this particular group. So how about I put some practices in place to reduce the likelihood of whatever biases I have playing out systemically. You could do that guilt-free as a grown adult, DC, okay? All right, let's keep on going here. Now, implicit bias defined, a formal definition, okay? Think about general bias as a particular tendency, inclination, feeling, or opinion, general bias. Implicit or unconscious bias are when stereotypes, which are group trait associations, affect how we think, feel, and behave in an unconscious manner. Now, these biases, which include both favorable and unfavorable perceptions, are activated involuntarily and without an individual's awareness or intentional control. Let's unpack this. So implicit bias usually starts with the stereotype, the exaggerated association of a group with a trait. Surgeon equals male, nurse equals female, Asian equals good at math, whatever. You think of certain groups and certain traits pop to mind. Doesn't mean you consciously believe them, but what sort of comes to mind for you, if you're being honest, as a mental reflex when you think of a certain group? That's what we're talking about, okay? Now, once those stereotypes are activated, and we all have them, they can affect how we think, that is our judgment and decision-making, how we feel, prejudice, liking or disliking someone simply based upon the group to which they belong, or behave, discrimination, unfair, positive, negative treatment of someone simply based upon the group to which they belong. So what is implicit bias? It's a phenomenon where a stereotype can affect how we think, feel, or behave at a subconscious level. That's it. Any definition you see of implicit bias will have those elements in it, reworded, but the essence will pretty much be the same. So this is going to be our working definition. And by the way, I'm going to make these slides available to you once we're done. I'll send it to the conference coordinators so you can have that. All right. So, but you can take screenshots, you can take notes, that sort of thing. All right. All right. So how we doing on time? Ooh. Okay, all right, we're gonna do this already. Okay, there you go. Take out your cell phones, take them out. We're gonna have some live, interactive, anonymous polling. Now, this is very risky when you got the techno crack pipe in your hand. Resist temptation, folks. I need you to stay focused on this polling, okay? And I don't make fun of drugs. Like, I'm not trying to say like it's casual. I know what drugs can do, right? I'm just saying, now that you have the technology in your hand, you're gonna be tempted to do other things. Stay focused. Everybody, stay focused. All right, there's your QR code. Hold up your phones, put in your camera function. Hold up your phones, right? And once you do that, it's going to take you to a poll question. The questions it's going to ask you, have you participated in implicit bias training? Past 2 years, lasted 1 hour or longer. Tap A for yes, B for no, and you are done. Once you answer, do not clear your response. You tap, you click, it highlights, let it stay that way. Where it says clear responses, do not tap that. All right? Answer the question, let it stay answered, okay? All right, so a few more seconds here. And if you don't have a phone or you're not picking up the QR code, I'll give you the website on the next slide. Okay? Everybody good? Is it showing up? The question? Okay, cool. All right. Now, if you didn't have it, here's your website at the top. It's this www.pollev.com/inclusion. That is the website. You can type in manually. It'll take you to the same site as the QR code. If you want to text, you can just text the word inclusion to the phone number 37607, hit send, wait a few minutes, the question, and then you'll receive a confirmation message. After you receive that confirmation message, text the letter of your response. In this case, A for yes, B for no. All right, so some of you have training before. I know we have a lot of PennLive people in here, the PA group, so I would expect that. Good. It's sort of a practice question for us. Now, when I change the question on my screen, the question on your screen is going to change by itself. It's going to be like magic. Pretty cool, okay? For those who are texting, once you're in, you're in. All right? And again, don't just go back and forth trying to see the thing move back and forth. Don't have fun. Okay, let's go ahead and lock that in. And if you're not able to answer this question, keep on trying for the next one. All right? Oh, you can't see that. Sorry, y'all could have told me that. Hold on a second. There we go. Give me a second. All right, there we go. Technology. There we go. Give me a second. There we go. All right, so those are your results. Okay, so 60-40. Wow, nice round number. 60 people responded. Okay, all right, let's go to the next question. For the most part, I grew up in. Now, where'd you grow up? Now, I want you to use this map to answer this question. If you grew up in the U.S., so from birth to 18 years old, where did you spend the bulk of your childhood? Northeast, which includes the D.C. metro area, Southeast, Southwest, West Coast, Midwest, birth to 18. If you're a military kid in the international sense, select another country. If you're military domestically, just moving around a lot, then select whatever region of the country you spent the bulk of your time in. All right, let's go back over here. All right, go ahead and continue to answer. Wonderful. So you're getting a hang of the technology, right? Pretty cool? Okay, now, this is our first exposure to what we call the less visible bases of identity, which can be the basis of bias. I cannot look at you based upon your physical appearance and see or tell in what part of the U.S. you grew up, or if you grew up in the U.S. at all, right? But where you grew up has had a significant impact on who you are today, but I cannot see it by looking at your outside appearance. But we can't have regional bias. What do I mean? Within the U.S. Say you were born, raised, and now you work in the Northeast. And somebody comes to work with you from the South, deep South, Alabama, Mississippi, something like that, and they have a Southern accent, like a deep Southern drawl, a slower pace of speech. What do some of you Northeast people say? Ooh, this person coming up here from the South, talking all slow, are they smart? Bias, right? We can have regional bias within the U.S. And please trust me, other parts of the country have certain biases towards you in the Northeast. All right, you're not exempt, okay? But I can't see it by looking at you. All right, let's keep on going. Next, okay? Some findings. Past 50 years of research, here's what we know on implicit bias. That we all have them, folks. But the impact of our biases and others will depend on the roles we play in society. We talked about those special roles earlier. Next, implicit bias is more prevalent than explicit bias because our minds are cognitive, right, thinking machines that encode, that is, take in and store many associations between groups and traits that we then constantly process. You have all types of biases and preferences and favorites. Got a favorite number, shape, color? Think about your favorite color right now. Got it? Favorite color? Okay. How many of you can prove scientifically and objectively that your favorite color is superior to all the other colors? You can prove it objectively. What's your favorite color? It's what?
My favorite color?
Uh-huh.
It's green.
It's green, of course. So that, all right, so it's objectively better than right. Folks, We all have preferences. Sometimes you can have a personal preference. It is really strong. It can have the feel of being objectively better than another option. Nope, your personal preference. Your favorite number, when you played sports, to your middle school locker, your first jersey number, that number not special. It's special to you, not special to everybody else. Sorry to break it to you, right? But the notion is, folks, do you know numbers don't even exist? Numbers are abstract concepts we created to quantify the world. We got favorites, right? Very interesting how this works. Now, it gets deeper. In the US, very important, please pay attention. We automatically categorize others according to race, gender, and age. So, if you were born and raised in the US or been here for a while, when you see another human being, your mind automatically, in milliseconds, will attempt to categorize them race, gender, and age. Why? Our minds are built to be efficient. Thinking in categories is very efficient. If you meet somebody for the first time and they tell you they're a police officer, you don't have to ask them, do you have a gun and a badge? Did you go to police academy? It comes with the category. So once you know somebody's category, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, male, female, old, young, those categories in the US are loaded with information that you can use where you need to encounter somebody from that group one-on-one. And usually that process works. But sometimes we get it wrong. You meet somebody from a certain group, just by seeing them, race, gender, age activated, traits, stereotypes associated with their group activated. But that information may not fit this particular person or situation, and it's off. There's a misalignment, bias shows up, and it's awkward, okay? Now, to be clear, gender and age as a basis of categorization, global. Most countries and cultures around the world would categorize their people according to gender and age groups. Race, however, varies from country to country and culture to culture. But in the US, race matters. Next, implicit and explicit bias don't always align. You could have negative implicit bias towards a group and positive explicit bias towards that same group. That's called dissociation. It's rare, but it happens. Next, individuals can hold negative implicit bias towards their own group. Absolutely. Me as a black person, if over my lifetime I'm overexposed to negative traits in black people, I can lock it in at a subconscious level. It doesn't mean I hate myself, I'm gonna treat all black people bad, but if I'm not careful, it could have some influence. Next, the potential impact of implicit bias on behavior can be overridden by conscious effort. So just because you discover that you associate a negative trait with a group does not lock you into mistreating them or disliking them. You can do things at a conscious level that can cut the link between a negative association and treatment or feelings. Next, implicit bias is a stronger predictor of day-to-day behavior than explicit bias because much of our behavior and thoughts are automatic. Some psychologists estimate that 80 to 90% of our thoughts and behaviors throughout the day, automatic. You do not process them at a conscious level. Like your facial expressions right now. How many of you would just think about your face? Exactly. But your face is communicating all day long. You ain't thinking about it, right? The notion is, yeah, I mean, most of it, right. How much time in the day do you constantly think about how your face looks? Okay, anyway, let's keep on going. Okay. Now, very important, folks, pay attention. Implicit bias is most likely when what? Trying to attend to multiple things. Multitasking, like some of y'all doing right now. Yeah. When you're stressed out, under high threat, tired, or fatigued. Do you know anybody like this? Right? Folks, I'm telling you, that is a perfect storm for implicit bias. That has nothing to do with your character, right? You could be a good person in a tough situation. So the situation can bring out your biases without you knowing it, and you remain a good person. Again, it's not a character issue. This is a situational, societal, human process issue. Okay? All right, let's keep on going. Phones out. Next question. Keep your phones handy and keep it open to that website. Okay? Here's the next question. According to the implicit associations test, which some of you took, Americans' strongest negative implicit attitudes are towards which one of these four groups? Women, African Americans, the elderly, the obese. Do y'all need me to put the QR code back up? Or are you good? Good? All right, so the website is still up there, Once you start to type it in, it'll pop up, www.pollev.com. All right? And don't talk to your neighbor, don't give each other answers. Don't confer. All right? Do it on your own, answer on your own. All right? I'm gonna do this like a reveal, show you all the results at one time. It's gonna be very dramatic, like a home renovation, right? Move that bus. Don't move the bus, okay? All right, here we go. Let's see what you said. Here we go, real quick, here we go. Interesting. I love it. 11% saying women, 43 African Americans, 9 the obese, 8% the elderly, 38 the obese. This is what we call diversity of thought, diversity of perspective. Everybody doesn't think like you, even in your own in-group. I know you're from multiple organizations, but you're still sort of peace and justice, human rights, that sort of thing, right? Folks, you are wonderful, you are brilliant. But other wonderful, brilliant people think differently than you do. Shocking, I know. Look at your data. It's staring you in the face. right? So you can say, I know it's African Americans, of course African Americans, everybody knows that. And the person sitting right next to you, you know for 10 years, is saying it's the obese with the same level of confidence. And I cannot look at you and see how you think, right? But how you think can be much more important than your race, gender, age, height, or weight that I can observe, do you see? Diversity of thought, okay? See, many of us suffer from what's called pluralistic ignorance. We tend to overestimate the extent to which other people think like we think or believe what we believe. In many cases, they do not. Look at your data. Let's go ahead and lock this in. And the answer actually is C, bang, the elderly. So 92% of you have a misperception. Notice I didn't say you were wrong. Some of your egos can't take being wrong, right? It's a misperception, right? So 8% answer correct. Who got it right? Who said 8%? Who said elderly? Okay, all right, okay, good. My PennLive people got it right. All right, but the notion is, got it right, okay? But as a class, y'all failed, okay? All right, let's look at some findings. All right, here we go. Here's what we know. Most biases in the U.S., this is 50 years of research on implicit bias. Most biases in the U.S. arise from external characteristics such as race and gender. So African Americans and women are common targets, but the magnitude of the negativity of the traits towards them, they're not number one. Next, Arabs and Muslims, common target of bias, particularly since 9/11. People overweight, common target of bias, that is true. LGBTQ communities, common target of bias. Undocumented individuals, common target of bias, but America's strongest negative bias is actually toward the elderly, followed by the obese. Race and gender, not even in the top two. Interesting, right? And when we in our longest session, we're going to go into a deeper dive there. But the bottom line is the U.S. has a very strong pro-youth bias, extremely strong. Okay, let's keep on pushing. All right, I'm out of time. Okay, all right, how much time do I have? No, okay, all right, let's keep on going. All right. So here's some findings. Real quick. I'm gonna go through this quickly. Okay, all right. Here's what we know. Taller employees have been shown to receive higher wages than their shorter counterparts. Yes. And more attractive employees have been shown to receive higher starting salaries than their less attractive counterparts. So here's the deal, folks. If you're short, you may want to look good, right? Let's keep it tight, right? I mean, you go to the gym, you can work it out. You can be short and good looking. You can bounce out. Folks, it's not me, it's a science. Okay, what else do we know? Qualifications being equal. That is credit score, financial history, income, etc. Blacks, Latinos less likely to be approved home mortgages and auto loans and paid higher interest rates on loans when they were approved. Next, education. Previous performance being equal. Kindergarten to 12th grade teachers have shown lower academic expectations and displayed less social comfort than Black and some Latino students and white students. Various researchers have found this over the past 50 years. What else do we know? People show negative implicit bias to Latinos are more likely to oppose both illegal and legal immigration. Hot topic there. Next, law firm partners, check this out. Law firm partners found more errors and gave lower ratings of a legal research memo when they thought it was written by a Black versus white associate. Please understand, the same exact work product or the same level of performance in an organization can literally be evaluated differently depending on who's producing that product or who's engaged in the performance. I can show you 20 studies making the same point. Next, crime and circumstances being equal, African Americans and some subgroups of Hispanic Americans are more likely to be stopped, searched, arrested, receive poor plea deals, convicted, receive longer sentences, receive the death penalty, decline probation, decline pardon. At every level of the criminal justice system in the U.S., race still matters, okay? All right, I'm running out of time here. Let's go ahead, don't worry about that, that's good. I'll show you that later. Okay, that's wonderful, that's great, okay? Okay, how can implicit bias be measured? This is important, all right? So 2 ways to measure, identify implicit bias. One is the implicit associations test. It measures the strength of subconscious associations between concepts or groups like Hispanic people or elderly people and evaluations like good or bad or stereotypes like athletic or clumsy. Now the IAT is not perfect, but it does correlate with various implicit and explicit behaviors. All right, everybody take out your phones. If you have not taken an IAT yet, hold up your phone and take a picture of the screen. Take a picture of the screen, take a picture of the screen. What I want you to do when you get home, just Google implicit associations test. Just Google it. It'll pop right up. The first 2 links will pop right up. It'll take you to the same site. It is a Harvard-based site. Once you get there, there's over 30 different implicit bias tests you can take. You get the results instantly in 10 to 12 minutes. I mean, the test is 10 to 12 minutes. The results are instant, right? It's anonymous. You won't be tracked. You won't be traced, right? But that's how you can, one way to measure, identify implicit bias. All right, another way, let's go over here, is I want you to do this in the next 48 hours, okay? Talk to somebody close to you. Think about someone in your life who knows you really well, spouse, significant other, parent, child, best friend, sibling. I want you to give them a pass to give you honest feedback about the biases they think you have. And then you ought to listen without becoming defensive. Why? Because sometimes other people can see your biases before you do. Folks, your friends, your family, they know you, they love you, and have a lot of data on you. Years and years of data. They have seen your biases, both implicit and explicit, okay? Have the conversation. Bottom line is this. If your friends and family see your biases, your coworkers probably see them too and will never tell you. Never tell you, right? But if they can see it, they probably see it as well, okay? So 2 ways to identify your bias, IAT, and talk to somebody close to you, okay? How can implicit bias be reduced? This is my picture from Morehouse. This is where I work, y'all. So Morehouse is the only predominantly black male institution, higher education in the world, okay? I see this all day, every day. This is nothing for me, right? So you think young black male, what comes to mind, if you're being honest, right? Probably not this. Not because of you, because society. Just if you rewind the videos of our lives and think about your exposure to young black males, is it really this? That's what we're talking about. Don't feel guilty. For what? All right? Now, what can you do as I wrap up? Okay. All right? Start with yourself with this implicit bias stuff. Own the biases that you have, accept them as part of being human, let go of the guilt, and develop management strategies. Start with you. Some of y'all want to point the finger. We all have our things, okay? Next, have the tough conversations. Deep work in these areas, diversity, equity, inclusion, implicit bias, will be awkward, uncomfortable, and sometimes difficult. Do it anyway. But having conversation from a place of openness, empathy, and non-judgment, okay? Next, keep this work top of mind. This is a marathon. It is not a sprint, okay? Your strategic planning, your hiring, your conferences, retreats, right? Standing meetings, et cetera, should include a diversity, equity, inclusion, implicit bias factor or lens, right? You might not see the needle move for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So what? If you decided 1, 2, 3, 4 years ago, you'd be in a different place today. Drop your buckets where you are. Start right now. Finally, raise the equity question. Regardless of who is in the room, ask how a decision, policy, initiative, et cetera, will affect various groups within the organization and customer base. You may be in a room, everybody looks like you, think like you, same background, same college. You raise the equity question. How will this practice, this policy, this procedure, this marketing campaign affect black, white, Hispanic, Asian, homeless, housing insecure, immigrant, whatever the case may be? You can raise the equity question when everybody in the room looks like you. Yes, we want diverse bodies in the building. That is great, that is outstanding. But you can still have diversity of thought and have homogeneous demographics, DC, right? So some of you are maybe in locations where you may not be able to draw an international crowd or a diverse crowd. We get that. But you can still have diversity of thought and how you approach your problems and practices, okay? All right, so folks, and of course, you can this is self-promotion. I know that my team makes me do this. All right, but anyway, we do a bunch of trainings on awareness, implicit bias mitigation. That's the next one. Okay, I'll wrap up here, okay? I don't have any business cards, but you can take a picture of this right here. This is all my contact information. That's my website. That's my personal email, Twitter, link to all this other stuff, right? And there's books there, so we recommend Blind. I'm making my friends so rich. I don't have a book yet. I got 2 books in my head. I don't get a kickback or nothing. I'm making them rich. I'm told I've easily sold 10,000 of those books, each one of those books myself. But these are good. This is my colleague. They're good people. All right. So Benaji and Greenwald, Blind Spot, start there, and then Jennifer Eberhardt with Bias. She's out at Stanford doing good work. So folks, in all seriousness, thank you for what you do. I know I've been talking really fast, throwing a lot at you. We'll send you the slides, right? But to have a conference around peace and justice in this day and age, with this recent election. They didn't seem very peaceful. Just the way people talked about the other party. I'm not picking political party. I'm talking about the language and the commercials and how we presented each other. And our children are watching. And we want them to grow up in a peaceful and just society when our leadership doesn't set always the best examples. But you can. In your day-to-day and what you do, in your small or large spheres of influence, you demonstrate these principles at the highest levels possible, right? Don't depend on other folks. We all can be leaders in our respective circles. So we need you to do this. I just want to equip you with some information, some science, some perspective that can enhance the good work you're already doing. This is what I call a good to great conversation. I assume many of you are already good at this. Some of you are great at this, right? I just want to enhance that good work you're already doing. And with that, folks, thank you for your time and attention. We'll look forward to the conversation.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Bravo. You didn't even sing and you get a bravo.
Oh, you're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. You're quite welcome.
All right, we have maybe just a few minutes before we go to our awards for a few questions.
My fault.
No, it's okay, because you shared a lot of valuable information. Nevi, come on over here. And I guess just to get started, one quick thing I want to ask. You know, in this room, there are people at least trying. They wouldn't be here if they weren't trying, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, they're taking those steps. We're all at different places, right? But what about the people who don't even try? Is there, you know what I'm saying?
Right. So there's 2 ways to look at what I call folks who are in denial. One is that they don't think implicit bias exists. They don't have preferences. They're fair and altruistic and inclusive and all of that. And that's wonderful. We think of ourselves that way. And then to acknowledge the notion of privilege can be difficult. So here's a little exercise for you. This tends to work with people, all right? So think about when you were dating. For anybody who's ever dated, think about you were dating, okay? And in your mind, don't say this out loud, in your mind, complete this phrase, okay? But think about when you were dating. I would never date someone who, fill in the blank, in your head, right? What was a red flag for you? A no-go, non-starter, unacceptable. I would never date someone who what? Right?
Dallas Cowboys fan?
It could be that. Dallas Cowboys fan. It could be don't like dogs. It could be height requirements, breath requirements, teeth requirements. Y'all got something, right? So that little personal preference you got, you don't think that's bias? Yeah. Of course it is. On the other side of preference lies bias. And we all have preferences in a variety of ways. Now, some preferences we can justify. Serial killer, axe murderer, okay, fine. But some of y'all got, don't like, the Eagles or dogs. That's your thing. But you have a preference. That is a form of bias. A lot of people say smoking and non-smoking. Mm-hmm. So if you would date a non-smoker but won't date a smoker, that is literally bias, right? Differential treatment or response to another human being based upon the group to which you belong. You can justify it, we understand, but it's still bias. All right, number 2. So use that dating one. That usually works. Number 2. Anybody in here left-handed? Any lefties in the room? Keep your hands up. See? They blend right in. They're amongst us. You don't even know. Lefties, make some noise. All right. Here's the thing about left-handed people. This will work for all y'all. Right-handed people. When was the last time you consciously thought about your right hand privilege? Right? But the right-handed people in our society, we have privilege. Think back to when you're in grade school. Right? You remember, you go to fourth, fifth grade, it's the first day of the school year, you walk to the classroom. How many of you right-handed people remember looking for the right-handed desk? You don't even know what I'm talking about. Because either the platform was in the center or it came around from the right side. That's called a right-handed desk when you were leaning right. Lefties, feel me on this. Lefties go into the room looking for the left-handed desk, where the platform comes around from the left side, and either there's 0 or 1, right? Okay? Now remember, we write right-handed people. We write away from our bodies. Lefties write across their bodies. So you got these left-handed people all crumpled up in these right-hand desks looking all crazy, right? Never even thought about that with your right-hand privilege cells. Right. Are you a bad person for being right-handed? No. But can you acknowledge that you have privilege in our society by being right-handed? Of course you can. See what I mean? So those 2 examples are pretty clean, pretty guilt-free. The dating thing, we all have preferences, left-handed, right-handed. Now, if you're a right-handed person with a left-handed spouse or child, you're sensitive to this. You see the difference, right? But you can talk about scissors and ergonomic mouse and when you go to dinner, like this happens at weddings a lot. Say there's a long table like this, right? And we're eating, it's real tight. Where do the left-handed people sit? On the end. Why? Because if I'm right-handed, so say he's right-handed and I'm left-handed, he's eating, I'm bumping him. He's like, get yourself to the end of the table with your left hand set, right? Just go, because they have all the room they want. We don't even think about that. So right-hand privilege is not a guilt thing, but you can acknowledge that it exists and that you can benefit from it. Same thing with skin tone, just as random. Skin tone, the melanin in our skin, less than 1% of the human genetic code. But we have structured the world according to that little 1%. But right hand, left hand is like whatever, DC. Right? So those examples often are guilt-free, pretty clean, and pretty intuitive. Long answer, long, I'm sorry.
That was fascinating. But I don't know if there's anybody who has a card that they've written down. If we'll take a few of those, and I'm going to throw it out at him for the final summary or whatever. In the meantime, if you want to ask him something or you want to go help get the cards, that's fine. You want to perhaps, okay, we'll wait for the cards, good, because I want to see what they're saying too. I'll tell you that we don't have time to get into it here. But I would love to talk to you sometimes about, what you said about, African Americans can have some issues too with African Americans.
Yes.
And there's a consciousness we have to, if we had, for whatever, in childhood or whatever, some negative experiences, that might, you want to talk about that? Because it might even be relevant into some of our races here.
Yeah, so all right, so I trained Philly PD. And with Philly PD, because I do my research, right? So I know about North Philly and a bunch of different neighborhoods. Right? Now, anybody from Philly? Okay, so you got some Philly folks. All right, so y'all been there, I'm sure. Philly has a bunch of cameras all around the city, right? And it helps. They have crime on camera, like actual shootings during the middle of the day on camera. So what I'll do before each training, I'll go on YouTube and I put in Philadelphia PD, and all these videos will pop up. 99% of them were young black men. So now I'm training these predominantly white police officers. I had to not be biased as young black men, knowing what they see every day, because I just saw it myself. That's tough. Even if I'm a black officer, but I'm mainly dealing with young black males, arresting them and everything else, gangbangs. I can begin at a subconscious level to associate negative traits with young black men as a black person. Absolutely. So yeah, folks, it's kind of complex here, right? I'm telling you, if you watch, just put in Philly, go to YouTube and get a chance, put in Philly PD, and it gives you those video clips of crimes, and tell me who you see. That's a tough one. Sorry?
When you talk about a city that majority are black people, then you're going to have 98% of who committed crimes or do something good. So that's
Right. Well, you have a significant black population, I agree. But if I'm an officer, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, but I'm an officer, and my exposure to this population is through crime, and it's all day, every day. If I'm on the street for 20 years, even if I'm a good person, I can implicitly associate crime with that group and still be a good person. You gotta remember that. It's not necessarily a character issue. Implicit. Explicit, that's different, right? But implicit, yeah. So population does matter, I agree. Yes.
So as Nebi is going to read just a few of them, give you ones, and then Chad will, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Okay, so the first question we have is, how often do we need training?
All right. Now, we're talking about human development. So I'm a social psychologist, right? So I'm sort of a unicorn in that I'm actually a social psychologist. So we are the people that study and research this, stereotyping, racism, prejudice, discrimination. Most of my colleagues who produce this research aren't trainers. They don't, because they think somehow they think it's like less pure, like it's a whole thing. But anyway, right? What you want to do annually, you want this type of training, right? It doesn't have to come from the same person, different voices, different entities, different sources, but you want it to be ongoing, formally once a year. But we recommend books, we recommend movies, documentaries, things that is ongoing. This is not a fad diet. Like, you know, sometimes you want to make the wedding or your class reunion, you go on a diet, lose 20 pounds just for that. Then afterwards, you're back to the normal thing, you regain the weight. No, this is like changing lifestyle. This is going vegan or vegetarian. That is a change in lifestyle. That's not just a crash diet. So to do this work at an ongoing high level, it's about bias breaking habits. Breaks like, not break your habits like you break it in half, breaks like brakes on a car. We slow them down. So we want to break your bias, B-R-A-K-E, break, copywritten. Break your bias, right? But the notion is slowing these things down over time, and it's going to be a process.
So this question is as follows. Have you seen any strides on implicit bias for younger people, i.e. college students? And then the person is quoted as saying, this generation does not want to work.
All right, quick answer. The younger generation have less implicit bias than we do as a degree of magnitude. It's slightly less when you look at a normal curve, but they still have it, right? So it's like, so this is us, right? High bias, no bias, right? No bias over here. This is them. Right? So the range is the same. They've shifted towards a less biased position, but it's still a whole bunch. Just go online and just Google blackface on college campus. Google noose on college campus. You get a bunch of hits, come right up. Young people today. You can do that in prep schools. I train high school students directly, and we see this.
And this question is, how do you deal with the moving target of implicit bias? It's always changing and hard to plan for in our work.
You're not social scientists, so don't try to stay up with all the research. You got articles coming out every month. There's over 1,000 articles on implicit bias, right? I would say the books are probably the best because they tend to summarize. I gave you 2 of them. I'd say every couple of years, just go on Amazon, look for a book, just put in implicit bias, look for books written by social scientists that got PhDs and read their bios. Not that non-social scientists can't do this work, but the social scientists tend to take a scientific approach to the work. So I would go with books more so than journals. You're gonna have a hard time keeping up with all the journal work. It's too tough, right? And then do your training. Even, I like live training, but even if it's video-based, self-paced with the questions, some of y'all just click, click, click. Take it seriously. Some of that training can be really, really good, but treat it as sort of an ongoing thing.
Nebi, would you get the last question?
Last question is, how important are the names we give organizations designed to impact for good? For example, positive words describing what we want, or negative words in the title describing what we want to eliminate.
And that's a tough one, because now you're getting into marketing and messaging and so forth. And like some organizations intentionally do not have black or the name, like, I think it's the National Bar Association. It's the Black Bar Association, but you wouldn't know it because it says national. Others may say, they might have Hispanic or Asian in their name. That's a tougher call for me. I don't know the science on that to know, what you want to communicate with the name, where's pros and cons. I think it may depend on your audience and your cause, like pro-life, pro-choice. right? That's language. That's both pro-life, pro-choice, rather than anti. So that was intentional around language. So it's hard for me to give a general response around titles of organizations. You know, I'm going to assign to them, say, do your focus groups, think about your goals, and also think about your mission. And if this title is going to bring you closer to your mission, or you're making a different point, but it takes away. So for me, when I train police officers, I do not say white privilege or white supremacy when I train police officers, because I understand their psychology. I talk about it. They getting it sideways and don't even know it. I just never say the phrase white supremacy and white privilege, but that's what I'm giving them, the science and everything behind it, right? So you have to just think about, what will this name communicate? What is our goal? Is it going to help us reach that goal with this title? Would it make a separate point but take away from our ability to reach that goal? That's what I would say.
Very good. Well, please join me in thanking Encyclopedia Marks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now I know we want to move quickly because you've spent a lot of time here learning a lot of things that I hope will impact your lives and the lives of others. And Nebby, you want to join me? And Chad, you're going to actually hand out the awards for us. I think they're up here on the table. I think perhaps that's where they are. And we will begin, and we want a part of this event to also acknowledge the progress that is being made, acknowledge those who are really doing something to advance peace and justice in our communities. And so this is our second year trying to do this. This is the first time we're going to acknowledge this in person. But we really encourage you to, as you look forward to our event next year, think about it. You watch those people in your community and those organizations, those nonprofits that you think need to be lifted up and encouraged, because that's what this is about, encouraging those people who are trying. And so we did 3 awards that we want to honor, and we could have honored 20, that's what's great, 25, 45, because there were so many great things. But the first one goes to a corporation. And the corporation that is being selected for this is Marks Enterprise Equity Health Institute. So the Enterprise Equity Health Institute is dedicated to promoting a culture of equity and inclusion throughout the Highmark Company. The Institute is actively engaged in Highmark's recruitment, hiring, professional development, and establishing inclusive workplace practices and standards. This same commitment extends to ensure equity and quality of care, that's what we care about, to every patient, member, customer, and community. Within its inaugural year, the Institute organized a team of experts led by Dr. Larkins Pettigrew, who brings her experience as a nurse, a distinguished professor, a naval officer, a global health strategist, and an obstetrician, gynecologist, specializing in global health issues. She leads the Institute. The team, though, is focused on addressing, this is important, health disparities and inequities, as well as ensuring Highmark Health's philanthropy, people, pipeline, and purchasing are diverse and inclusive. So representing this incredible institute today are Veronica Villalobos and Vice President Robert James. So thank you all. Thank you very much. Do you want to have a word?
Thank you so much it's truly an honor to receive this award by this organization. Appreciate getting to know more about PA Media and the great things that you're doing with these collaborators. I mean, this is what we are about in terms of the partnering and really trying to drive DEI in a way that not only impacts our organization internally, but externally. And so just appreciate you thinking about us. We work hard. We were able to roll out a DEI survey across the organization, get a sense for where we wanted to go. And I'd say the one that really went to the heart of things was when COVID hit and the vaccines. And that was Veronica's team that really led that. And I don't know if he's here, but I know George Fernandez, I had a chat with him yesterday, and Kate. But those are the types of partners that help to really solve hard problems that ensure that lives are saved. So just want to, on behalf of Dr. Margaret Largans-Pettigrew, our phenomenal team of 14 other DEI individuals, just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
And I just want to add, we are absolutely humbled and grateful. You have given us back some energy because it gets tiring. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, up next we will have the Brethren Housing Association. It would be hard to find a nonprofit agency more deserving of the PA Media Group's 2022 Peace and Justice Award than the Brethren Housing Association in Harrisburg. This organization is dedicated to helping people and families who have nowhere to call home. The people who make up Brethren Housing Association don't just give them a cot for the night, they give them a way out of hopelessness. The Brethren Housing Association extends dignity and love to people many consider undeserving. The work of the Brethren Housing Association has saved lives and lifted thousands out of absolute despair. The people at Brethren Housing know justice must walk hand in hand with compassion, and there can be no peace without organizations like Brethren Housing, helping those most in need. Thank you.
My name is Tiffany Burrows, and I'm here with my executive director, Kate, and we are incredibly thankful to be nominated or to be receiving this award. We've been doing this work collectively for over 30 years with the start of small Brethren in Christ, Church of the Brethren churches, and been able to impact, as they said, over thousands of individuals, helping them not only to find housing, but more importantly, helping them to find their own sense of self and worth, knowing that they are meaningful and that they deserve something in this world and that they deserve to have everything that everybody is deserved to have. So we are so grateful, and I don't know if you want to say something briefly, Kate, but.
Thank you so much for this, and we are leaving today truly inspired to do better and do more. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Brethren Housing. And now for our individual awards, the last award that we give out, and that is going to the Reverend Nathaniel and Pat Gadsden. It would be hard to find a more deserving people for this award than the Reverend Nathaniel and Pat Gadsden. Both are tireless community workers who reach out every single day to provide comfort and support to those in need. As a chaplain for UPMC, the Reverend Gadsden has been at the bedside of people dying from COVID, cancer, opioid abuse, and gun violence. Through his chaplaincy training program, he's cultivated a network of ministers serving in hospitals, nursing homes, and schools throughout the region. The Reverend Nathaniel Gadsden and his wife, Pat, comforted families grieving young men taken too soon, and they have walked with those struggling to overcome addiction and depression. They've mentored countless young single mothers in their parenting classes and helped countless women reclaim self-esteem after years of domestic abuse. An author and poet, the Reverend Gadsden founded the Writer's Workshop, which has nurtured dozens of local poets and playwrights, most of whom have faced doors tightly shut to their talents. The couple has provided a platform for African American artists, sponsoring events throughout the year to showcase their talent, including their annual Kwanzaa celebration that has become a staple of Black Harrisburg's holiday season. On top of all of that, each Sunday, they minister to those in need of spiritual sustenance at the Imani African Christian Church, with services streamed live, and I catch them every Sunday on Facebook. The Reverend Pat and Nathaniel Gadsden.
Well, thank you so much. This is very humbling, I got to tell you. It's amazing when I look around this room and see people like yourself, and I know that I'm standing within this midst, along with this beautiful woman here, my wife, Pat Gadsden. This is truly, truly a blessing. So Pat and I literally met Pat 29 years ago, and she had an organization called Life Esteem. And our TV program and our ministry now is called Life Esteem. We were called at one point the Imani African Christian Church. Right. And I remember listening to my brother here, and I kept thinking to myself, should we be called that? Are we bigger than that? Are we more than that? because words do matter, right? Though I am extremely proud to be African American, as Pat is, and to be, engaged in our culture, we always thought, though, that God is calling on us to do something bigger and better. In other words, to embrace everybody and everything. One of my favorite preachers is right there, Brother Russell Goodman. Now, here's the problem. He's a white guy. Look at him. And he preaches like a brother. I said, I'm having a problem with this. Because I learned so much from Brother Goodman and from his lovely wife, Dr. Joyce Davis, and of course, the next president of the United States, Cole Goodman, right? All right. We have had a lot of fun with this TV program called Life Esteem. Why? Because we've been able to meet people like yourself at every, seemingly walk of life. I mean, we've been exposed, and then we've gone through all kinds of training. Pat is one of the top trainers for the University of Pittsburgh Child Welfare Resource Center. She's gone all over the state of Pennsylvania as a trainer in a lot of different organizations, and she brought me along. And so I've enjoyed this run, and the work that we do in the hospital. In fact, I'm literally late for the hospital, but I'll be over in a few minutes. But anyhow, creating the chaplains program, Brother Russell Goodman came in and came through our program. So we have people like Brother Goodman and others who step up and say, I can do this. Because as a chaplain, you don't see, denomination, you see people. And you also find God in all kinds of different ways. So we are so blessed and pleased to be here today. Thank you so much for recognizing us. But we didn't do this to be recognized. We did this because God called us to do it. And I thank God for it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Chad is, sorry.
The only thing I'd like to add to all of what Nate said, and I'm surprised he didn't mention it, but when is our Kwanzaa Festival?
December the 10th.
And it's going to be at Harrisburg High School. So we invite each and every one of you to come out and participate and be a part of that this coming December 10th. That's all. And thank you so very much to everyone. And Kate Barron, who I met so many years ago, and many years ago. And I really appreciate all the PennLive and Joyce Davis, who is my friend from many, many years ago as well. So thank you each and every one of you so very much.
And they
I'm
really...
glad Pat did say Kwanzaa. By the way, Kwanzaa is about African-American culture, but over the years, and we've done this now for about 20-something years, we're pleased to see that everybody comes out. Aisha Noor, thank you so much. You've been there, you've been a supporter. God bless you. And so please do come out, because that's what it's really all about, all of us appreciating all of us. Thank you.
Great. And they are just off the plane last night from South Africa. So to be here today really is really a persevering, right? So I want to thank you. Would all of the award winners and the sponsors maybe come down for a group photo? That's what Chad is insisting happen. And again, heartfelt thanks. Kate, this is your vision. We have to acknowledge, yes, Kate Barron, president of PA. Yes, she's a leader who really cares, as well as Burke and Teresa Bonner's there, who manages the newsroom, gets all the news out, and so many of her. Salim there with PA Studios. I mean, we've got a lot of great people behind the scenes working to make this happen. So thank you. See you next year. Bye-bye. I'll get on the end here.